Hey everybody, Matt Mazda here, back with Marvel Heroes. And this time we got Ghost Rider up on the chopping block, and a couple of people requested the more standard burn, turn and burn Ghost Rider build and what I would do with it. So I'm going to do it, and that's basically the whirling chain build. It's actually a highly functional build, very strong. I'm sure everybody's seen it in action if they're not already using it. Um, Definitely goes against the standard build that I was doing, except I kind of just worked it into what I was doing anyways. And I just changed the skills around a little bit. Well, one of them. And it's pretty strong, works fairly well. You can make it so that you're permanent spirit, and it's fairly easy to get permanent spirit. I'm fairly well geared, so it makes it even easier. And I definitely work things a little differently so it works better for me. And I'm not sure why people don't do this already and why they haven't figured this part out. So the changes I make are primarily in gearing and not so heavily in skill selection. However, some side skills I don't bother with. So, you can bother with them if you like. It's all personal preference on that. So going into the skills, obviously we got to do whirling chain. Those will be your main skill hill here. As you can see, it does pretty fat damage, 10,000, actually 10,500 to almost 16,000 per hit, and it's almost at 5 attacks a second. That's real fast, and that's a lot of damage. Unfortunately, Ghost Rider is physical and mental damage, so you're kind of going across the board with a lot of damage things. One thing that I'm doing that a lot of people aren't doing is I'm going with chain snare as well. This is giving me an extra 12,000 damage a second. That lasts a pretty long time, so the timing kind of synergizes with the next skill, which is Inferno. Everybody drops the Inferno. It lasts 5 seconds, and then they wail out with Whirling Chain for 5 seconds. So this will also last just as long. It doesn't immobilize on other targets, and it doesn't work too long on bosses, but it'll work long enough. Most people put 20 points into a basic attack. If I don't run out of mana, I don't know, or spirit, I don't know why I would bother with a basic attack, so I'm not sure what they're doing. And most people use Chain Lash. I'm going to stick with a 1 point that I get for free in Chain Thrash. If I actually hit the enemy with it and they start attacking me, they do 10% less damage, so I'll take that for free. This isn't a huge area. It's a medium area spell, so you're going to be close to them anyways. Another skill that they're obviously going to max out is Chains Ablaze. This is one of the skills that I'm going to gear for, and what it does is a passive effect, gives all your chain abilities a 1,000 crit rating, which is nice, and restore 5 spirit when you hit with a Hellfire afflicted enemy. So this is going to give you, this is where a lot of the spirit's coming back in. This only costs 8 spirit, and then you're getting spirit every time you hit something that's affected with Hellfire. And Hellfire is basically a passive that once you hit this, you afflict everything you hit is affected with Hellfire, and also you put Hellfire on the ground with Inferno. And then every time you activate it, every time you hit something with it, it does mental damage, another 7,000 damage twice per second for 3 seconds, and it also gives your chain abilities an extra 1,000 damage rating basically. And this lasts for about 11 seconds. And so that's why I don't understand why people don't go with Chain Snare. They can just throw this on there. It's getting a huge extra buff going to it. You're already doing this. This rings clear to me. I don't know why it doesn't ring clear to anybody else, but hey, maybe something weird happens, but I didn't see anything weird happen. And then of course we're going to put points into Inferno Will. This is going to give you some maximum health as well as health regeneration, and then if you die, it's going to regenerate you to percentage maximum health and give you a massive amount of health per second for 3 seconds. And then before we go into our final skill, I put a point into Penance Stare. It does enough damage that you can use it here and there, even though I don't really use it here to there. I put a point into Ride, so you can ride around faster. I put a point into Infernal Contract because most people probably want to use it. It does give a pretty good amount of Brutal Strike and critical hit rating and damage of both types for a nice little duration. But it costs half your health, so you got to be smart when you use it. Obviously you want Hellfire or Infernal already down. As you can see, it's not on my board, so I don't use it. But I put the point in just so you can see it in there. And then I use Wheelie as a movement ability just in case something crazy is going on, Cosmics and everything. You're still going to be moving around. You're probably not going to stand toe-to-toe Cosmics the whole time, but you should be able to do it here, I don't know, 60% of the time. And then our final skill is going to be Spirit of Vengeance. Now this is something that people really misunderstand, and they think it really, Infernal Contract and Spirit of Vengeance work hand in hand, and they kind of do. What happens here is when you're at 75%, 50% health, 25% health, you get a big chunk of damage rating and a big chunk of damage negation. And then your Hellfire powers burn the soul's enemies, applying Hellfire debuff. That's where you get Inferno and Chains of Blaze. So the thing is we're investing in Infernal Will, so we have passive health regeneration. So as soon as we hit Contract, we start regenerating health, and we're going to go immediately from 50% health to about 51% health in less than a second or a second. And so we're going to go from that big buff to the 75% buff. So this Contract is going to get us to this great place. It's going to get us to 51% health in a hurry, and we're going to get that nice little itty-bitty buff there. So don't think you're hitting this and you're getting all these huge numbers out of it. You might get a split second of those huge numbers and then they're gone. So that's going to be a problem. If you really want to stay at 50% health, you're going to have to figure out a way of doing that without Infernal Will. You can do that through a core with life and hit, or life and spirit on medkit use, and then control when you heal, and try doing it that way. Good luck to you. It's just a weird style of play. It goes against all methods of the game. I think of Spirit of Vengeance as something really bad just happened, but now that I got hit for 50% of my health, I get to ignore a lot of damage until I can recuperate that health, and I really like the damage ignored part of it. The damage buff is just something that's a bonus. It could work really well with like a lifesteal core as well if you don't have the life and spirit on use. But the life and spirit in use is much better. And if you get really low on health, like if you really get nailed, now if something hits you again, you're ignoring 65% of the damage plus your damage negation already. You're ignoring a lot of damage. It gives you more than enough time to recuperate, get out of the situation. You really shouldn't die too much, and should you die, you'll get resurrected anyways. Now, another thing people misunderstand about this passive as well is it's not like if you get hit and it's gonna start doing this as damage is applied. No, if you get hit for 17,000 damage, say I had no armor at all, I get hit for 17,000 damage, I only have 16,896, I die. It's not damage negated as it goes along. It's just, I have to survive the initial hit, and then the next hit, like say if I get hit for 10,000 points, the next hit is now 30% of extra damage ignored. That's how that's going to work. So gearing for this build, which I call Whirl and Burn, because that's basically what you're doing. I do slightly different than others, but I did follow suit in some of what they do. And getting this whirling chain to spin fast is definitely a good idea. It works very well. So an Amulet of Agamotto, it comes in very handy because it's got a high attack speed and it's got +1 to all powers. That's why it outweighs Nutso the Squirrel. It's got +1 to all power, and you get the extra benefit of being below health, I guess, if you get hit by something nasty. Advanced Metasensory Array, high attack speed, high damage rating, and the +1 to all power pays out again. Some people actually do dual. I don't see that as a added benefit.
A much better thing I would say is this Advanced Super Soldier Serum. It's giving you the health, health and spirit regeneration, but everybody skips the fact that it does give you attack speed and movement speed, and it gives you a good chunk. Even with all this attack speed, it brings me up from 5. Actually, on the test center, I was able to put all the unique signs, so it took me from 5% attacks a second to 5.2. So it's a good chunk of attack speed. And I did a Pluvine Superconductor, which I see nobody doing, because, let's see, area ability, area ability, area ability. Why wouldn't you do a Pluvine Superconductor? I have no idea. That's a lot of damage rating, so it helps it hit harder. And then everybody's doing oddball metals and not Dr. Doom metal. Not sure why you wouldn't do this either. I got one with just about 25% power duration. Also, if things attack you, they'll cower in fear. This will help you in defensive situation and make them sit there so they take all the damage you're dishing out. Also, 300 damage rating, 1,000 health, 31 spirit. So it's backing up even more. But we're synergizing that with Chains Ablaze. I'm got a buff duration of just about 11 seconds with a 15-second cooldown. 25% of that would be an extra 2.5 seconds, we'll say. That's going to take me to 13 seconds of 15 seconds. I can just about permanently Chains Ablaze on the test center with full uniques. I was able to permanently Chains Ablaze, by the way, which means I'll never run out of spirit. I can just permanently do this. It's a very awesome feature to be able to do. So that pays out very well. I got a Cosmic Ring, which does really not much at all, but give me +1 to abilities. On the Insignia, however, I do have a 7% chance to give me an extra 9% attack speed. We're trying to tie that in with the Whirling Chain. It gives me some spirit when I pick up credits. That's useless. I would much rather some hit points on that. But again, 9% attack speed would probably get me to, with the proc off of the Super Soldier Serum, somewhere around 5.5 attacks a second on this, and we're trying to get that up. Core is all about health. Obviously, it's still a low-level core, but health with the hit point and spirit on use medkit with +1 strength. +1 strength is giving me an extra 5% base damage, so that's really helping me out. And that's it. I got obviously 3 uniques. The weapons are really low, but it's still doing pretty good. And I got hit point regeneration, hit point regeneration. Everybody seems to think that hit point regeneration is useless because he's got the passive. It's not true. It just stacks and it makes it even better. But I go at the standpoint that I'm not trying to stay under hit points. I'm trying to stay actually max hit points and still do maximum damage so I can take a massive hit and live. But that's just me. So I'll show you on a terminal. Let's see how I could use a kingpin. This stuff's gonna melt. I mean, I don't even have to do anything here. That's the Whirling Chain. It kills stuff too. Oh, good, some blues. See, I'm not running out of spirit. I'm not having any issues at all. Stuff's just melting. That's because the Chains Ablaze just stays active. Anything that's affected with the Hellfire, those guys weren't affected. That's why I ran out. As you can see, I'm actually gaining spirit there. Things are in the fire. No, damage isn't being applied. Something's going on. There are strange bugs with more than just Ghost Rider, by the way, where damage isn't getting applied. I'm having it happen with AoE powers with Ghost or Gambit and Storm. You just gotta stop laying on the button and then put it back on and it happens. Oh hey, dude. So whenever I come across
a mob, I have basically 4 buttons I hit, which starts off with Chains Ablaze, Inferno, Chain Snare, and then I just hold down the chain, whirling chain. Very, very simple. Rotation doesn't take much to do. I don't care if it's 1 or not. Although, seeing how it's still just a couple seconds off of being permanent, I really do wish I had that one other unique that helped stretch out the abilities, but you can see it still works. All you really have to do is just wait for the fire to disappear off the ground. You have to recast all your debuffs. Because the chain snare lasts longer than the Inferno. It's really that easy and that strong. So that's the Whirl and Burn, the standard whirling chain with some of the changes that I make. As you can see, you really don't need the Infernal Contract. It will give you some extra crit and everything. You can see I crit like mad anyways because we got a lot of crit in the background on AoE anyways, and it just burns stuff. So I hope it helps. Hope you enjoyed working that chain snare to it if you're not using it already. I'll talk to you guys later.